I think God calls all of us to fill different roles at different times, and I think that he wanted Donald Trump to become president.
I wonder if God wanted me to do this job.
Satan did.
Yeah, right, Rupert.
Thank you.
The devil made you do this.
Thank you, Greg. Democrats and the media instantly mocking Sarah Sanders, though, for that comment.
No, he didn't. Even God was like, what the hell? I can't take my eyes off you people for a minute.
Well, if he did, it's because he wanted to punish us for taking our democracy for granted. This president is actually the antithesis of Jesus Christ's teachings.
I believe that God called me to make sure that people know that Donald Trump is not the dude. So, hey,
right.
We're both called.
All right, Sanders also taking aim at the White House press corps for grandstanding during briefings.
This isn't everybody, and I don't want to generalize the crowd, but I mean, you see a lot of angry faces, people that their sole purpose is to find this gotcha moment, to catch you. Their job is not to get information, which is what the briefing is supposed to be. It's to trip you up. And I think if the briefing loses purpose and it isn't a good resource for the American people to get information and answers to real questions, then you do have to wonder if that's the best forum in order to put a message out.
Well, going back to the top, Greg, I bet the media is thanking God every day Trump's president.
Oh, my God.
The headlines.
Are you kidding me? They're making more money than ever, the publishing industry especially. I think this is, it's okay for Kimmel and everybody to make jokes about it. They were actually pretty funny. But it is an example of a media mocking, let's say, a Christian displaying their faith openly, when we know they would dare not do that if she had cited the Muslim god or a Buddhist prophet or whatever. If she'd gone in any other direction, if anybody had done that, it never would have happened. I think she probably meant he was the right person for the right time. I don't profess to know what God wants, and I'm always skeptical when people say that.
Well, she wants what's best for you, Greg.
I know. But when people cite religion as a motivating for an action, I just go, you can't know that. I know what you mean. You're saying this is for the best. But I'm always very skeptical of that. And now I'm going to shut up and watch the hate tweets fly at me, telling me I'm going to hell.
All right,
bring them on.
What aboutism over here? I wanted to get Katie's perspective. Charlie Rangel thanks God Barack Obama was president, said God put Obama in the White House.
Obama said that he was going to lower the sea level, so I think Obama thought that maybe he was actually God.
That's true. It's Moses.
No, look, I mean, she has her own beliefs.
Yes, she
They're
does.
the beliefs of millions of people around the country. And the mainstream media and the comedians can make fun of it all they want. They have the right to do so, but it goes to show that they're willing to continue to insult millions of people who agree with the Trump administration and the people that support them.
What do you think, Juan?
I don't think that was, I think you and Greg said, well, that's her beliefs, let her have them, but I don't think you guys buy it. I mean, to me, if you look at the 10 Commandments, does it say, oh, it's okay to lie, it's okay to cheat on your wife, it's okay to hang around with porn stars?
What's wrong with that last part?
Wait, what?
What's wrong with that last part? That's not in the commandments.
No porn.
There's no porn star in commandments.
What about the paying them off with hush money? That's okay, too. Yeah, how about the Russians
it's
trying
a
to hurt
transaction.
the Mueller probe? The Russians,
I didn't
God bless them, the Russians must have been instructed by God to go after Robert Mueller's probe.
I didn't hear Sarah Sanders say that Donald Trump was a perfectly moral person. She simply said she believes that God put him in place to do the job.
What a choice. What a choice.
Okay, Dana, what do you think about the comment also about what you said about the White House press
Can I talk about the other thing, too, though?
Whatever you want.
So remember that the interview was given to the Christian Broadcasting Network. Right. Okay. So imagine talking
good piece of information.
People.
No one told me that.
Yes, so she's talking to CBN.
It was in the packet, Greg.
And
read the bill.
When George W. Bush was president, they made fun of George W. Bush for years because I can't remember the exact details, but along the way somebody said that he felt called to do this. And they were like, oh, and it was the same type of antipathy for people that are Christian or whatever you are. Like, you're right. Like, I don't know what Buddhists believe, but I'm assuming Buddhists think that you're in the right place at the right time, or that, okay, all of that. There's that. Then what you said, Juan, about like the 10 Commandments, and they're frustrated, all that. But Christians also believe in forgiveness. And we don't know what is in his heart and what he has asked God for and what sort of forgiveness. That's like none of our business. Guess what? The great thing is we don't have to decide. He gets to judge.
You know what they...
It could be a she, Dana.
It also could be a she.
You know what, I want to make a point on this.
Yes.
So one day I was interviewing your former boss,
Yep.
George W. Bush. And afterwards, I got so much flack from my bosses for saying, oh, but Mr. President, in my church, we pray for you every Sunday. And people said, why would you say that to George W. Bush?
Okay, this is the thing about and you know what George W. Bush used to say when people said, we're praying for you, sir? He would say, thank you, I can feel it.
Oh.
Okay? So, but then the media would make fun of that, too.
Well, they made fun of me, I know.
The media for the last 2 years has spent a lot of time. They send reporters out, go see America. Go figure out how we got it so wrong. And this is part of the reason why we can let them have that. To your point of why in the press room, I think it's not that they're just trying to trip you up. In the press room, how do you make news? One of the ways you make news is if you find inconsistency. It's not just that, oh, you're going to tell me these things and I write them dutifully down and I don't get to argue back and say, well, that doesn't wash with this. And a lot of people in the room are frustrated that they were maybe called fake news on something and it only turns out 4 months later that that was actually true. So that is why they look for inconsistency. They're trying to break news.
But maybe it hurts her that her president says that the press is the enemy of the American people.
I don't think that hurts
There's
us.
certain reporters who take up all the oxygen, which means everyone
it makes
gets
it
punished.
hostile. It makes the press feel
pray
hostile.
for President Trump at church?
Every Sunday.
Oh, God. Keep it up, Juan. You're doing a great job.
Juan.
You can feel it.
Well, that didn't take long. The Democrats' newest it girl of income redistribution, Kamala Harris, is already taking big heat from liberal bigwigs. We'll play it for you in a moment. Now, why on earth would they pick on someone as brilliant and as accomplished as Senator Harris? Well, perhaps because she doesn't understand basic economics.
You support the Medicare for All bill. I think initially,
Correct.
I believe it will totally eliminate private insurance. So for people out there who like their insurance, they don't get to keep it?
Well, listen, the idea is that everyone gets access to medical care. And you don't have to go through the process of going through an insurance company, having them give you approval, going through the paperwork, all of the delay that may require. Who of us has not had that situation where you got to wait for approval and the doctor says, well, I don't know if your insurance company is going to cover this? Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on.
It sounds so simple. Let's move on. Wasn't that Michelle Obama? Well, anyway, the coffee guy is now saying, oh, not so fast.
That's not correct. That's not American. What's next? What industry are we going to abolish next? That alone would wipe out millions of jobs of Americans. And that is the kind of extreme policy that is not a policy that I agree with. And if you take immigration, you take health care, what we have is extremes on both sides, not representing the large majority of Americans who don't have a voice.
Now, Schultz is a businessman, and he's certainly no conservative. But he sees the writing on the wall here. He knows that the Democrat Party is moving so far left that it's leaving America. Democrat darlings like Kamala Harris are proposing disastrous socialist solutions to things like health inequality or wealth inequality. Those are the kind of concepts that were once left to late-night seminars in college. Forget the $32 trillion cost or the 500,000 insurance company jobs that would be lost in the Sanders-Harris-Warren plan of Medicare for all. The fastest way, by the way, to sink Medicare is to give it to all, not just to the elderly. It will go broke that much faster, maybe even in 5 years. So even if you tax the rich to death, you still can't pay for Medicare for all. Doctors and hospitals would face pay cuts. They're already facing them today. That means more hospitals closing, more doctors retiring or not going into the profession at all, longer waits for even serious procedures. And ultimately, this will lead, my friends, to ration care according to age, weight, and yes, other pre-existing health problems. But don't worry, because when you wait in line for the procedure, at least you'll be comforted to know that the government is pursuing Kamala's green energy fantasy.
I support a Green New Deal. And I will tell you why. Climate change is an existential threat to us, and we have got to deal with the reality of it. We have got to deal with the reality of the fact that there are people trying to peddle some idea that we should deny it, and they are peddling science fiction instead of what we should do, which is rely on science fact.
So what does the Green New Deal mean for you and your family? Well, it means the government would reach in and control monitor, and tax even more aspects of your daily life than it does now. You love your car as much as I do? Mine's 19 years old. I still love it. Too bad. The Green Party's Green New Deal calls for replacing non-essential individual means of transport with high-quality and modern mass transit. This is kind of a geeky way of instituting a ban on cars. But who decides whether your car is a non-essential individual means of transport? Maybe Kamala and crew will bring back Obama's green job czars. Why not? To achieve their green transport utopia, quote, it will be necessary to electrify everything else, including transport. So if you love your SUV, your sedan, heck, your hatchback, too bad. Only electric. And if you were deemed worthy of owning a car at all, well, remember, in Kamala's gas-free world, the government gas bags have all the power. And even big gulp banning, bike lane mandating, Mike Bloomberg is balking at Harris's green folly.
I'm a little bit tired of listening to things that are pie in the sky that we never are going to pass or never going to afford. I think it's just disingenuous to promote those things. You've got to do something that's practical.
Now, that means banning all coal, banning all cars, banning all nuclear power, taxing miles driven, taxing kilowatts used, taxing water used. It would be all on the table to force Americans to bend to the faddish trends of the socialist left. Now, more power for them, less power, freedom, and prosperity for you. It's always how it works in a fully centralized economy. And this is what is lighting the Democrat Party on fire today, really? Instead of kibitzing with the NRDC, Kamala should have consulted first with, I don't know, Kermit?
It's not that easy being green.
Well, it's not, because as the Kaiser Family Foundation found recently, support for Medicare for all drops like a rock when you know how much it's going to cost you. Same deal with the green agenda when people find out how much it costs. Now get this, 56% of survey respondents initially said they favored Medicare for all, the whole plan. But when they're faced with the prospects of paying higher taxes to fund the system, and by the way, the elimination of private health insurance companies, support falls to only 37%. And when told that the new plan could actually threaten the current Medicare program, only 32% remained in favor. My friends, this is why it's so critical for the Trump administration, the entire cabinet, and the Republican Party to have a full court press of facts out there to educate vulnerable voters on the green economy issues, on Medicare for all of it. History shows us that socialist ideas are always easy to sell to uninformed, indoctrinated, and sometimes desperate voters. But it's impossible to fully fund. It never works. It's a false promise of free stuff forever. But as always, you eventually run out of other people's money. Kamala Harris, I don't know, would do better pursuing maybe a career as a DJ?
A song that has to be played loud because you have to hear the bass. The Sun is Shining by Bob Marley and the Wailers.
Or maybe a backup singer.
One nation under a groove, getting down just for the funk of it. Can I get it on the... Wow!
Or, I don't know, a voiceover artist?
You're right?
If you buy what she's selling, she may have the last laugh, but you're going to be crying all the way to the government-owned bank. And that's the angle.